January does not arrive for Libra with thunder or loud, dramatic events. It arrives quietly, like a morning when you wake up, and suddenly notice the familiar room feels brighter than usual. Not because the light is stronger, but because your eyes are no longer half closed. A very clear feeling settles into your chest. The feeling that you no longer have the strength to keep defending this person. In the past, you were very good at finding reasons. You called their coldness exhaustion. You called their absence being busy. You called repeated hurt a misunderstanding. And every time your heart sank, you told yourself that with just a little more time, everything would be different. Libra believes in balance. You believe that if you are gentle enough, life will soften in return. But there are moments when, no matter how hard you try to tip the scale, the truth still weighs more than all the comforting words you tell yourself. January brings that moment. Not a moment of sharp pain, but a moment of deep clarity. You look back at what has happened, no longer through the lens of hope, but through the light of honesty. You realize you have been moving through the same emotional cycle, the same waiting, the same disappointment, wrapped carefully in kind excuses. And this time, when you almost say the familiar line, "Maybe I am overthinking," the sentence does not fully land. It falls halfway, like a leaf that fails to hold on to the branch. It is not because the other person suddenly became worse. In truth, they are the same. What changed is you. You have looked long enough to stop confusing potential with reality. You have listened to their silence enough times to understand it is no longer a pause, but a choice. And deep inside, a very honest part of you whispers that this truth has been here all along. You simply became quiet enough to hear it now. That moment carries no anger. It carries a sadness that is very gentle, but unmistakably clear. Sadness for realizing you tried harder than necessary. Sadness for understanding that love, or any real bond, cannot grow when only one person is watering it every day. And in that quiet space, Libra touches an important truth. Facing reality is not a betrayal of your kindness. It is the way you protect it. Right now, you may not feel the need to do anything. You are simply standing still, observing. Observing your emotions when you think of this person. Observing your body when old wounds resurface. And you realize something deeply human. Honesty with yourself is not cold. It is gentle, but firm. It does not force you to cut everything away immediately, but it does not allow you to keep deceiving yourself. And in that quiet awakening, an invisible door begins to open. Not to take you somewhere far away, but to let light reach the parts of your heart that have gone unnamed for too long. You do not need to step through yet. Just stand there, slow your breath, and allow yourself to clearly see what is already present. When the truth has been seen, everything else will know exactly how to arrive. And the first thing that arrives is not an explanation and not a clear conversation. It arrives slowly, quietly, slipping through days that seem completely ordinary. You begin to notice the silences you once ignored. You no longer rush to fill them with empathy or familiar excuses. You let them stay. And in that silence, everything begins to reveal itself. There are days when you realize you are no longer eagerly waiting for a message, not because you stopped caring, but because you grew used to their presence, always arriving late or never fully arriving at all. There are moments when you look back at the times they were absent, exactly when you needed them most, and suddenly understand that it was not accidental. It was a choice, repeated often enough, to become a message. The truth does not stand in front of you and announce its name. It moves around you, passing through very small actions. The way they listen, but do not truly hear. The way they promise, but only keep their word. when it is convenient. The way they show up lightly, as someone who comes to receive, then leaves, before having to give. And you, with the quiet intuition Libra carries, begin to piece these fragments together, no longer rushing to deny the shape that is slowly forming. There is a very particular sadness in this stage. Not the sadness of loss, but the sadness of confirmation. Confirmation that the unease you once felt was not because you were too sensitive. Confirmation that the heaviness in your chest was never random. Deep down, you have known who this person is for a long time. You simply chose, for a while, to love, hope, more than you trusted the truth. And then, something very gentle happens. You stop trying to explain their behavior. You stop wondering if you could do more or be better. You begin to see everything exactly as it is. Nothing added, nothing softened, no judgment, but no illusion either. The feeling is like standing in front of a mirror that has finally been wiped clean. After years of dust, the reflection is not perfect, but it is clear. In that clarity, you do not feel anger. You feel calm, a mature kind of calm, born from accepting that not everyone who enters your life is meant to walk with you to the end, and that realization does not make you less valuable. It reminds you that you deserve relationships with full presence, where care does not need to be requested and respect does not need to be explained. When the small details are placed where they truly belong, a different feeling begins to form. The question is no longer, how will they change? But, what do you need to feel more at peace? And when that question rises, something inside you shifts, very gently, but enough for you to sense that you are standing before a new threshold. Not a threshold of loss, but one of truth being acknowledged, where self-respect and tenderness toward yourself begin to return, one breath at a time. And when you stand there long enough, another feeling begins to rise. Not loud, not dramatic, but heavy and real. This is the moment you touch the deepest pain you have been carrying for a long time. That pain is not about them leaving or the possibility that they may no longer be present in your life. The pain lives in the realization that you tried to hold on to something that was already slipping away. Using all of your kindness, you listened more than was necessary. You bent yourself more than your heart truly wanted. You kept adjusting who you were to fit into a space that kept growing smaller just so the relationship could survive. A little longer. There were moments when you chose silence instead of speaking what you felt, not because you had no voice, but because you were afraid of hurting them. There were times you blamed yourself for being too sensitive, while deep inside, your intuition had been knocking for a long time. And when you look back now, what tightens your chest is not that they did not do enough, but that you did too much for a balance that no longer existed. Libra believes in fairness. You believe that if two people truly try, anything can be repaired. But at some point, you begin to understand that balance cannot be created by one person constantly sacrificing. You cannot call it love when only one side is always waiting, always understanding, always being strong for both. Seeing this does not make you weak. It makes you mature. And within that maturity, a quiet decision begins to take shape. Not a decision made in emotional intensity and not one born from anger. It arrives on an ordinary day when the exhaustion becomes unmistakably clear. Tired of holding together the image of a relationship that has already lost its true form. Tired of explaining behaviors that never needed explaining. If care had been real, that decision does not need an announcement. It shows itself in the way You take a step back. In the way you stop pulling toward conversations that never fully meet you. In the way you stop asking why you are not important. In moments that should matter, you do not slam the door shut. You simply stop standing in front of it. There is a very beautiful clarity in this moment. The clarity of someone who has lived through enough disappointment to understand that peace does not come from holding on to something that has lost its rhythm. Peace comes from respecting your own limits. And when you begin to do that, you do not feel as empty as you once feared. You feel light. Light in the way someone feels when they are finally allowed to set a heavy load down. Not every release carries the shape of loss. Some releases open space for you to breathe deeper, to see farther, and to return to your true value. And in that quiet space, Libra begins to feel clearly that this clarity is not cold. It is warm, steady, and full of self-respect. Like a gentle light slipping through a window, never blinding, but enough for you to see exactly where you are standing, and enough for you to trust that you are walking in the right direction. And when you stand steady in that gentle light, something very clear begins to happen inside. Not that you stop loving, not that you become cold. It is the moment you are no longer pulled around by your own emotions. Everything settles, like water after a long wind has passed. You begin to see that this decision is not an act of giving up, but the deepest form of self-care you have ever given yourself. The separation in January does not carry the shape of impulsiveness. It does not come from a final sentence, and it does not erupt from a heated argument. It forms slowly, quietly, after countless nights of thinking in the dark without ever turning on the light. After calm mornings where you sit still, sipping coffee that has gone cold, letting your mind travel through every memory. You have felt enough short-lived joy. You have endured enough long-lasting sadness. You have convinced yourself enough times that everything would be fine, even while deep inside, you knew you were holding yourself together. There is a beautiful kind of maturity when you realize you no longer want to explain anything, not because you lack reasons, but because you understand that those who were meant to understand already did a long time ago. You no longer argue to be validated. You no longer prove your worth through endurance. You begin to see clearly that peace does not come from being acknowledged by others, but from acknowledging your own limits. This decision does not make you feel defeated. On the contrary, it brings with it a very unfamiliar sense of freedom. Freedom from waiting for an uncertain change. Freedom from explaining your feelings to someone who never truly listens. You begin to slow down inside your own life. Each choice you make is now built on self-respect, not the fear of being left behind. There are afternoons when you notice you are breathing deeper, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting reality. You allow things to leave without chasing them. You allow space to appear without rushing to fill it. That space is not cold. It feels like a room that has just been cleared, where light can enter in the most natural way. And in that space, you begin to hear your own voice again, clear, calm, and steady. Libra carries a rare gift for balance. When you choose peace, you are not doing it only for yourself. You are setting a new standard for how you love, how you connect, and how you show up in this world. You are learning to say no without carrying guilt, learning to walk away without playing the villain, learning to trust that true gentleness never requires you to sacrifice yourself. And after living long enough, in that clear state of mind, you begin to understand something deeply human. Not every ending needs an explanation. Some endings only need quiet understanding. Some choices do not need witnesses, yet they change the entire way you walk forward. You no longer search for peace outside yourself. You carry it. In each small decision, in every boundary, you place with care. And within that calm, a new feeling begins to glow. Not rushed, not dramatic, but real. The feeling that once you choose yourself, life begins to respond in very subtle ways. Relationships become clearer. What no longer fits naturally falls away. And you, with a heart shaped by both love and release, begin to move forward with a deep trust in yourself, as if from this point on, everything that comes to you will be received through the peace you have patiently learned to build. And within the peace you have chosen, something very subtle begins to happen. You notice that your gaze no longer turns toward them with that familiar sense of longing. You are no longer waiting for a different version of them to appear after each disappointment. You no longer wonder if being just a little more patient might finally change everything. Hope, the thing that once kept you there, now slips gently from your hands. No pain, no struggle, just a quiet exhale. The moment you stop hoping does not carry the weight of pessimism. It does not come from losing faith in people or in love itself. It comes from a deep respect for reality. You begin to understand that love is not a promise suspended in the future, but the way two people show up in the present. You no longer measure love by what could happen, but by what is actually happening right in front of you. There is a very quiet sadness when you arrive at this understanding. Sadness from realizing you once placed too many expectations on someone else's ability to change, while neglecting your own need for safety. Sadness from seeing clearly that you loved with full sincerity, but that sincerity was not met with the same level of commitment. And in that moment, your compassion shifts direction. It no longer flows only toward them. It turns back and gently holds you. Libra has always been gifted at seeing the good in others. You see potential. You believe in growth. You are willing to wait. But there is a simple truth you now allow yourself to acknowledge. Not everyone wants or is able to walk beside you at the same level of maturity. Accepting this does not make you harsh. It makes you honest. When you stop hoping they will be different, you also stop acting as the guide for a journey that was never yours to lead. You stop trying to pull someone toward a place they are not ready to step into. You stop explaining why you need care. You stop waiting for understanding that always arrives too late. You begin to see that real love never asks you to shrink yourself, to fit into someone else's absence. There are evenings when you sit quietly and feel this shift clearly. Not the emptiness of not receiving a response, but the gentle stillness that comes from no longer expecting one. That stillness is not cold. It feels like a lake after the wind has passed. Its surface calm, unforced. In that quiet, you hear your own inner voice more clearly. You know what you need. You know what you no longer want. And when misplaced hope leaves, a different kind of hope begins to grow silently. Hope that you can build relationships based on reciprocity. Hope that the gentleness you carry will meet true appreciation. Hope that love, when it arrives, will never ask you to make yourself smaller. These are not naive dreams. They are standards, shaped by real experience, by loving fully, and learning how to love yourself more deeply. You understand now that love cannot survive when it flows in only one direction. It cannot grow When one person is always waiting, always yielding, always understanding more. And in this realization, you do not feel bitter. You feel light. Light, as if you have finally set down a backpack filled with expectations that no longer fit. As you walk forward, with this awareness, the world around you seems to shift its rhythm as well. What is no longer aligned naturally fades away. The values you cherish begin to reflect back to you through new encounters, through connections that move slowly, yet stand firmly. And you, with a heart that has learned how to release hope, placed in the wrong places, begin to open into a different kind of space. A space where love is no longer exhausting, waiting, but clear presence. A space where you are free to be fully yourself without sacrificing any part of the deep value you carry within. And when you no longer carry those misplaced hopes with you, something very natural begins to happen. The inner space within you starts to open, slowly, like curtains being drawn aside in the early morning. The light does not rush in all at once. It filters through, little by little, just enough for you to realize that you are standing in an entirely new breath of space. The emptiness that appears right after you let go is not cold or hollow. It takes the shape of a healthy, quiet, a kind of stillness you have not allowed yourself to touch for a very long time. You begin to feel lighter in a way that is unmistakably real. No more unconscious checking of your phone. No more looping thoughts about whether you said the right thing or did enough. Your mind slowly stops tightening itself to keep a relationship balanced that had already tilted too far. In that lightness, your thinking becomes clearer. You see your life as it is, no longer blurred by expectations that were never met. Very ordinary moments begin to carry a different meaning. A morning where you wake up and your chest does not feel heavy. An evening when you return home and feel your full presence. Inside a familiar room, you hear your inner voice again, clearly, no longer drowned out by the noise of waiting, and you realize that it has been a long time since you last felt this fully present with yourself. This space does not ask you to fill it right away. It gives you time to breathe deeper, time to remember who you were before you had to strain yourself to maintain a connection that was no longer balanced. You remember the things that once made you feel alive, the values that guided you to love in your own unique way. In that quiet, you no longer feel lonely. You feel enough. Libra carries a powerful gift for connection, but you are learning an important lesson, that the deepest connection does not always come from the outside. As you return to yourself, you begin asking different questions. What rhythm do you want your life to follow? What foundation do you want your future relationships to be built on? And this time, you do not rush the answers. You allow them to form naturally through the experience of peace. A very quiet healing is taking place now, not through emotional explosions, but through small, steady changes. You eat more slowly. You sleep more deeply. You smile more gently. You treat yourself with the same tenderness you once reserved for others. You begin to understand that caring for yourself is not selfish. It is the foundation that allows you to continue loving the world in a healthy way. And as you live within this new rhythm, life begins to respond, not with immediate grand gestures, but with subtle signs. Conversations grow more sincere. The people who enter your life carry clearer energy. You are no longer drawn to unclear connections because you have grown familiar with clarity inside yourself. Most importantly, you return to yourself, not the version that tried to please everyone, but the version that understands the true value of balance. You stand firmly in your own space without needing to fill it with anyone else's presence, to feel whole. And when you live from that grounded place, each step you take feels lighter, more confident, as if each passing day is quietly guiding you toward what truly fits you, toward connections that are worthy, toward experiences built on mutual respect and shared care. In this new space, you no longer need to search for yourself. You are already here, whole, at peace, and ready to receive life with all the light you have always carried within. And after you have moved through all of these layers of emotion, January no longer appears as a test. It feels more like someone quietly placing everything back where it truly belongs. It does not take away anything that is yours. It does not punish you for loving with a full heart. January does only one very fair thing. It gives the truth back to you. And with that truth, it returns your self-respect, the part of you that may have been left behind while you were trying so hard for someone else. There may be days when you suddenly feel empty inside, not because you are weak, but because you carried a heavy weight for far too long. When that weight is finally set down, your body and your heart need time to adjust to this unfamiliar lightness. Allow that. Allow yourself to slow down, to breathe deeper, to feel each small shift taking place within you. If you are cutting ties now, trust this. You are not losing the right person. The right person never makes you question your worth. The right person never asks you to sacrifice your peace for half presence. What is leaving your life now are simply the things that have already completed their role. They came to teach you how to love, and they leave to teach you how to respect yourself. Libra, you were not born to carry imbalanced relationships on your shoulders. You were born for harmony, where giving and receiving meet at the same point. When you choose to stop, when you choose to let go, you are not closing the door to love. You are opening a different door, one where love does not exhaust you, one where love does not ask you to shrink yourself, to fit someone else. Carry this gentleness forward. Gentleness toward yourself first. Trust that what comes next will be built on stronger ground, clearer truth, and deeper worth. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. Simply continue living in alignment with the truth you had the courage to face. And as you walk from that place, each step feels lighter. No more weight that does not belong to you. No more fear of trading peace for love. What remains is a Libra who has been through enough to understand this. The greatest value is not holding on to someone, but holding on to yourself.